and getting online contacts.
Yeah.
And then you were
in a
attacked
relationship with this man
Right.
who had a wife that was
and you felt in love.
yeah,
with
I
him,
fell
you
in
said.
love with him, and I mean, she wasn't gonna take it, so she hid me in the street. She found my number. She started calling me. She started sending men as clients because she saw my ad. Threatening me. One time she ended up going to my house. She followed me to the supermarket and attacked me with cans of beans and celery, which is really funny. But then she did something that really scared me. She said, "I'm going to call immigrations on you." And she told me, "I'm an American white woman. I can get you out of here in a minute." So I remember I sat in the steps of my apartment on 16 in Euclid in South Beach with my friend Bianca. We just walked by the same place last week when I went to visit, and we had these memories. And she looked at me and she said, like, we became really good friends, my friend Bianca. 3 years that I lived in Miami. And she said, "I love you," and I hate to tell you this, but you need to go. You need to leave this place. This is not good for you. You think, she's not gonna stop. This guy doesn't love you. Oh, hi everybody. Welcome to A Time to Listen, a conversation series presented by the New York and AIDS Memorial, and today hosted by me, Cecilia Gentili. The series bring together voices to honor the stories and the lives of our people who live with HIV or those who died from AIDS, and to celebrate the ongoing care and activism that is part of New York City, though. It's part of our DNA. Like, activism it comes with being in New York. Either if you are a New Yorker or if you're not, but being in New York, you get all this sense of activism. We just listened to a moment of an interview that I did with the New York City Trans Histories Project, where I was talking about when I was in Miami and why I left Miami. If it wasn't very clear, I left Miami because I was in a relationship with a guy that was married, and I didn't know that he was married, and his wife found out, and started making my life miserable. I thought, like, throwing celeries at somebody in the supermarket is pretty damn funny, though. But I always try to put like some kind of sense of fun to my stories, but it was pretty terrible. It was really terrifying when, mostly when she said that she was gonna send ice for me. So, I have to say that storytelling has been such an incredible outlet for me, for my feelings, and it has been such an incredible opportunity to kind of like talk about my life and my experiences. So, um, in that story, I talk about why I left Miami. But you know what? She led me to New York City and all the wonderful people here. So, you know what? Bless her. Um, so today, we are joined by Jennifer and Cheri, who are some of the creators of a project, I'm Still Surviving, an oral history project in which women in a long-term survivor study interview each other about their lives and their experiences living with HIV. How amazing, right? The interviews have become a book, uh, a, a book, a documentary video, an exhibition, and the project keeps going. I don't know what's going to be next for I'm Still Surviving, but I think that the possibilities are endless, right? I am super excited and delighted to talk with them today. As a storyteller, I see how oral histories have been the way that so many of our communities that sometimes are ignored by the printed world or TV. Storytelling have been the only way to share experiences, right?
Mhm.
And storytelling has been like such a powerful statement to know about people who were before us and for those that are coming after, to pass our experiences and how we navigated the world at different times. And that's so important. It's so important because it teaches other, it's so important because it entertains other, and it's more important because creates a sense of community.
Mhm.
And I am an incredibly believer of a sense of community. I don't know. Community has given me everything, and I believe that community saves. So now, um, uh, before I start talking with Jennifer and Cheri, I'm going to play a clip from a documentary made by CUNY TV about my beloved sister, Lorena Borjas, who passed this year from COVID-19. Lorena was the mother of so many people in the trans Latina community in Queens and across New York City and the whole United States and even beyond the United States. When she told the story of her life and spoke openly about her history of drug use, of being arrested, living with HIV, sex work, you know, uh, all of those things happened to elevate her, right? And she was one of the most respected and loved people in the community. That is the type of healing that you can get from anything else. You can only get it from community. You can only get it from sharing your story. I am sharing this with this audience and with you, Cheri and Jennifer, as a gift in return for the stories that you are sharing with us today. So
Thank you.
let's see and hear from Lorena.
La campana es porque yo antes cuando era pequeño iba a la misa que nos llevaba mi mamá y siempre miraba que daba 3 campanazos, 3 para arriba y 3 para abajo. Era, dice, en el nombre de Dios te doy esta bendición. Entonces yo siempre hago eso cada que voy de salida de la casa para pedirle paz, suerte, porque cuando tú vas para la calle no sabes si vas a regresar a tu casa. Déjame decirte que yo en mi vida, yo he tenido 2 apoyos, la verdad. La que no tuve yo de mi familia, yo tuve el apoyo de una señora peruana que me apoyó muchísimo, muchísimo. Yo digo si hubiera yo tenido una hermana, tú sabes lo que es venir esta señora, venirme a bañar, porque yo estuve bien enferma, venirme a bañar, venirme a hacer de comer, levantarme, llevarme al hospital. Entonces en ese momento ya estaba de pareja de mi novio, Román. Entonces ya entre los dos me fueron viendo mi vida, que me han ayudado a hacer estos cambios. Porque imagínate, tú tener un novio joven, porque yo soy chaparro, le llevo 20 años. 20 años, tener un novio joven que quiera que su novia salga adelante. Él siempre me decía, deja el alcohol, dedícate a lo que quieres hacer y yo te apoyo. Entonces yo digo que estas 2 personas han sido, te voy a decir, como mi familia. Porque yo llegué aquí a la ciudad de Nueva York sin familia. Mi familia fueron ellos 2. Y la comunidad trans. Porque tú sabes que después la comunidad trans se convierte en amiga, conocida, pero después se convierte en familia tuya. Si ponemos en una balanza, yo digo que me ha ido muy bien.
Oh, of course, life was very generous with all of us who had the pleasure of meeting Lorena and spend time with her. I get very emotional because she was such an inspiration for me. Okay, let's move on. Thank you for listening.
My class this semester.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're going to study her in my class this semester.
Oh my God, that warms my heart. That's so important. Oh my God. Oh. Okay. Thank you for listening. And I'm going to introduce you both now, Cheri and Jennifer. Cheri is a native New Yorker, born in 1971. Cheri, I was right after you. I am January 72. So we are right there. And look at that. Still kicking, mama. Still kicking.
Yes.
In Brooklyn Union Hospital. And she is in the middle of 5 children. What a difficult position to be, Cheri. She was married for 10 years until her husband passed from a renal failure due to AIDS. And she's the mother of 2 daughters, and she has 2 grandchildren. She tested positive for HIV in 1995 while pregnant with her oldest daughter, and has been living with the virus for 26 years. She is a member of Sister Love 2020 and a ministerial assistant in the Heaven International Ministries. That's Cheri. And Jennifer is a researcher and teacher at the University of Illinois, Chicago, where she focused on the historical intersections of race, gender, and sexuality. Her first book, Infectious Ideas, U.S. Political Response to the AIDS Crisis, provide the opportunity for us to understand the social and political history on the 80s and 90s through the response to the AIDS crisis in the U.S. and globally. Along with her work on surviving and thriving AIDS, politics, and culture, she curated work with the Chicago History Museum. I love the Chicago History Museum, and is currently working with the university community to create a mobile gallery called History Moves for activists and community organizers to share their stories. I am just so excited to have you both here. Such a powerful woman, though. Such a powerful woman, both of you. So thank you so much for being here. So first, what can you tell me about I'm Still Surviving? How did this project started, and why it became the kind of project that it is nowadays? Can you tell me a little bit about I'm Still Surviving?
I'll tell you a little bit from my end, and then maybe Cheri can say what it was like to be one of the first members of it as a collaborator. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I met for the first time a woman who I had known but never met, Marge Cohen, who's a medical doctor who worked at Cook County for a very long time and now is in Boston. And she was one of the first researchers on a huge NIH-funded study called the WISE, the Women's Interagency HIV Study, which was designed as a project to basically chart the natural history of HIV in the female body. And it started in 1994. And I guess we met in 2014. That sounds right. And it was the 40th anniversary. And she said, oh, it's the 40th anniversary of WISE. I said, oh, I'm starting this project called History Moves that asks, neighborhood folks and community organizers and people, just ordinary people, to think about how they are part of history and how they could tell that history. And I was like, let's do a project together. And so that's how it started, as all good collaborations do, from a kind of just a handshake. And then that's basically taken up 6 years of my life. So we started in Chicago and we worked with about 14 women living with HIV. Then we got funding from the MAC Foundation, MAC AIDS Fund, to grow the project and include women from Brooklyn and from North Carolina. And the other main site, one of the main sites to start WISE was SUNY Downstate. And so we were lucky to be able to go to SUNY Downstate. And that's how we got to Cheri.
I am just so amazed by how this project, which I don't think it was conceived to be as big as it is now, right?
And sometimes I still don't know I still try to avoid how much there's left to do.
It means, it is amazing. I'm gonna ask Cheri a little bit about how she got involved, but I would like before to have a little bit of a listening from Unsealed survivor. So let me play a little bit of the documentary so everyone gets a sense of the project.
You know, it don't matter where we're from. It don't matter from all walks. Any of you were born on the south side, the north side, Cicero, whatever. We all have a lot in common. And from the beginning, from how a lot of us were raised, or how we ended up recently. And, and how we deal with what's going on with us.
In November of 2014, a group of 14 women with HIV began work on a history project to document their experiences in the longest-running longitudinal study of women and HIV in the country. They interviewed one another about their lives as HIV-positive people in Chicago and their struggles and joys as women in the city. This documentary introduces their collective history.
I'm Latina, so we grew up, I was born in Indiana. We stayed mostly with my grandparents. It was nice having all family around, aunts, uncles, other cousins, coming to see grandma and grandpa.
My fathers wanted the best fathers, going to school every day, but they had a 3rd and 4th grade education. My parents did. But I always told my parents, we came out okay to have that, but they couldn't teach us how to read, anything like that, help us with our homework, but we always said we made it.
I ran away a lot, and then at the age of 13, I was in a school for bad girls. I was in the Oddie home. It's a place in Chicago for children who are supposed to be, it's just like the Department of Corrections, but this is only for children.
It was the adults in my life not taking care of me. The adults in my life not teaching me how to take care of myself.
I just always wanted to be around Black people. Because in Montreal, where I was raised, it was en français, and Haitians, we didn't consider them our people. So when I was little, I would say, when I grow up, I'm going to move to the States and be around a lot of my people. And when I came here, people treated me so bad.
I lost my childhood before I was 10. Mm-hmm. I became a parent at 13 because my mother died. And she told me to take care of our baby.
But I thought, well, I'm a woman now. I'm in a white dress, and I've got this big wedding. My first wedding was huge, and I thought, this is the transition over. Well, little did I know I was stepping into hell.
And I came in from church, and she said, sit down. I went, what's up? She said, the guy you're engaged to is dying of AIDS. I went, I'm not engaged to him anymore. And then she told me, she says, well, you were with him over 2 years, and you said you stopped using condoms after you became engaged because I thought he was safe. But he wasn't.
When we got downstairs in her office, I sat down, and she said, so you say if you tested positive that you would take your medicine and go see your doctor? I said, yeah. She said, okay, so that's what you do. I was like, and you know, I wasn't surprised that I had tested positive because of the lifestyle I had lived, but yet I was still hurt.
Finally, we went to about the third or fourth doctor, and as soon as we got there, he says, have you been tested for HIV? And we said, no. And I didn't even think of that, and I thought, let him test him. I know that, you know, how could that be? We were living, we had our 2 kids, we had, you know, that would be the furthest thing from my mind. I thought he had cancer.
Wow. What an incredible number of stories that touch you like really deep. It's so beautiful to be a part of this opportunity to listen to these stories. So like I am so happy that you all started this project. So Cheri, how did you get involved with this project? And what did you think when they asked you to be a part of this project?
First of all, I was in shock that they thought about me. I never think of my story as something that needs to be told or something that would interest anyone. So when Michelin and Jennifer approached me about it, I was like, okay. I was always one for giving information about HIV. I was always upset about the fact that there were stigmas that came along with being with HIV. The fact that only the gay community was infected by it, and if you got infected by it, that means you were a drug addict or you were among the gay community. And both of those things are furthest from the truth for me. I've never been a drug addict. I've never been a drug user. So for me to have caught this disease had nothing to do with my lifestyle, whether my sexual lifestyle or my physical lifestyle. I was raised in a very religious home. And so I wanted to get that information out that not everybody who has HIV has done things detrimental to their health. You know, that they deserved it. Nobody deserves this disease. I don't care what you've done in your life. Nobody deserves this disease. Nobody deserves to have to deal with people's prejudices and have to deal with, you know, taking medication every day for the rest of your life. And so I wanted it to be known that you can't judge a person based on something you've heard. Always get the facts. And not a lot of people had any facts when it came to HIV. So I wanted to get that out. That's why I was eager to join this project.
That's amazing. And it was that was part of the narrative that HIV was some kind of like getting back at you for whatever shit you did wrong. And so many people are like, I haven't done anything wrong in my life. So, but that was part of the narrative. That was like, people who get HIV deserve HIV because of something. And like, as you said, like first of all, nobody deserves any kind of diagnosis or health condition, and definitely nobody deserves HIV. So, but thank you for putting it out there. So, and how this project, how I'm Still Surviving became part of your life. What is it? You know, how you and I'm Still Surviving learn to live with each other, and how it changed you.
And it made me very vocal. I was very, I didn't always tell people about my status. And it had nothing to do with shame, but it had to do with it changed the way they treated me, with it changed how they looked at me and what they thought of me. And so I didn't want to deal with those things. So I never really told anyone about my status. But after meeting the women that are a part of this project, it made me realize that it's okay if it changes the way they look at me. That's their problem, not mine, because I am still the same person. I just have a disease, just like someone who has cancer. To me, HIV is just another form of cancer. It just doesn't go anywhere. You know, it goes into remission just like all the other cancers, because you can become undetectable. And that's how I see cancer, how I see HIV. And the fact that people don't even look at it the same way is frustrating sometimes. But it also makes me want to get them to understand that it's just another cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
About when we did the interview and we had our exchange with Jeanette about your phone going off and you weren't taking your meds. Could you tell people that? It's such an amazing story. I feel like.
Yeah, I have a problem with taking my medication. I don't like to take pills, and because of the fact that I suffer from depression, having to take pills all the time and every day, it was just a reminder to me that I have this disease, and I may have this disease I'm going to have this disease for the rest of my life. So I'll just stop taking my meds and just live with it like that. And when I informed Jeanette, who was my interview partner, she got so angry with me. I had never seen anyone talk to me. No one ever talked to me the way she spoke to me that day. She just, it's like she switched. She went from being my friend to being my mother. And it touched me so deeply because she had never met me until we did this project. And for so much love to just pour from her to me, it made her cry. She was so upset that I wasn't taking my medication. And I realized that I have to take my medication. I have to make sure that I take it, if not for myself, but for all the people who love me and who want me to be around as long as possible. And it was like a wake-up call to me that, listen, there are people here who are going to be upset if you're not here anymore. So you got to get yourself together and take care of your business.
Oh, such a beautiful story, though. And how is it that, that we create these relationships, like even with people that, we are not familiar with, but, specific situations, like create these relationships that are so important in our life. I am in recovery. I use substances for so long. And, your narrative kind of remind me of like people that I met in recovery who we became like, this thing that we both went through just made us much more than just two people in the same room. It makes us siblings, and we look out for each other. And like you say, like, I don't want you to die. And like, it reminds me when, when people would relapse, or like when I relapsed a couple of times, and like people were mad at me and worry about me and caring for me and all at the same time. And it was so overwhelmingly amazing to understand that someone loved me so much. So that's what I get from your narrative. So beautiful, Cheri. Now I'm going to play a clip from the I'm Still Surviving project, in which I got such a great sense of who you are, and I wanted to share with the audience. Can we play that clip, please?
The thing is, I was kind of like the tomboy of the group because of the fact that I watched all sports. I could sit with the fellas and talk sports all day long. And everybody's like, oh my goodness. And you know what you're talking about. Because my mother brought me home from the hospital. My father was watching a game, sat me in his lap, and I sat there and watched the whole game with him. I didn't fall asleep. I'm 3 days old. I did not fall asleep. I'm just leaning on my dad, looking at the TV. And I've been watching sports ever since. You know, I am a football fanatic. I love football. I even played football. That's how much I loved football. Only girl on the football team, but that was fine with me. You know, so I wasn't your typical girl. You know, I had my moments when I wanted to be girly and everything like that. But because I couldn't stand sitting around just talking about people. That's not who I am. That's never who I've been. And that's what most of the girls in the neighborhood did. I don't do that. So I'm not even going to be bothered with y'all right now. And so I would always hanging out with the guys. So people automatically assumed because I'm hanging out with the guys, I'm screwing the guys. Whatever. You can say whatever you want. I know what's the truth.
Oh my God! I just wanna see you in a theater telling these stories. That you just sit there and listen to you forever. Though this is so amazing. So who would you say this project is for? What is the audience that this project was made for?
I am trained as a historian of women, and so I know that when you put women at the center of a story, it changes the way you understand the history of it. We're about to be at the 40th anniversary of the first reported cases of HIV, what would become HIV in the summer of 2021. And women have been part of that story from the beginning. And the film that you saw earlier from Chicago has one of the longest surviving women with HIV in the country in it, a woman who was positive in 1980. And Cheri's story also. All of these stories are people who are women who have been at the center of this story, and they're never part of the way we talk about it. And I just think that for me, to change that narrative is the most important thing. And then the other piece is that it's really the voice. I mean, you listen to that story from Cheri and you understand a lot about a lot of different things. So you can hear what New York sounds like. You know, she has the most perfect Brooklyn accent, right? No, she really does. It's like a textbook version of it. But you also understand about people's lives, and you understand about gender relationships, and you understand about family, and you understand about school. And so the women who are part of this story tell us something about the history of AIDS, but they also tell us about the history of the neighborhoods that they grew up in, and about all of these things that were happening in their lives, which have, for many of them, approaching their 70s, have been very long lives that are really important for us to understand. So that's what it is about for me.
And growing up as a woman of different experiences and how it looks like through the decades, right? Because the way that I experienced growing up in my teenager years has nothing to do with the experience of a teenager nowadays, and it has nothing to do with a teenager growing up in the 1920s. So I think it's such an important use of when we put like oral history to share stories so people can compare, you know, the realities. And like, you know, I see like, you know, teenagers nowadays, and I'm like, oh my God, my life was so different at the time. So what do you hope that other women living with HIV get from this project? What do you hope it offers to other women living with HIV?
Can I answer that?
Of course, please do.
My hope is that they will feel a sense of sisterhood, a sense of camaraderie, a sense that they are not alone. There are so many women who feel that they're the only ones going through these things. When I joined Sister Love 2020, I met, it was all about women. There was nobody, no men there except someone's husband, but it focused on the women. And I felt so much love being around those women. And this was the first time I was meeting them. I think when you put women together who have at least one thing in common, no matter what it is, it brings a sense of camaraderie and a sense of sisterhood. And I'm hoping that other women who hear these stories realize that they're not alone in dealing and on this journey and in dealing with this disease, and that there are women out there who are pushing and fighting to make changes when it comes to women dealing with this disease. So I just hope that whoever reads the book, sees the documentary, hears the tapes, whatever, they realize that there is somebody out there fighting for them who understand what they're dealing with.
Oh, so beautiful. And, in a way, I know it's hard to explain, but, I talked with a couple of friends who live with HIV, and some of them say, like, at a certain point, I'm kind of grateful, for this disease, because it shaped me to be who I am today. It shaped me to be strong, and it shaped me to be opinionated, and it shaped me to be a better friend. So, I want to play a clip to everybody to hear a little bit about when you found out that you were living with HIV. Can we play that clip, please?
And they never told me on the phone what it was that because all I was thinking of, something was wrong with my pregnancy. I wasn't even thinking about the HIV test at all. Mm-hmm. So when I got there, I'm like, what's the problem? She's like, oh, we test, you remember you can send it to HIV test. Yeah, okay. She said, well, the test came back positive. Mm. And I'm looking at her. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. What? She said, the test came back positive. How is that possible?
What a moment, Cheri. What a moment in your life. Tell me a little bit about the feeling. How was the feeling?
It scared me because of the fact that I knew the type of lifestyle that I lived. And like I said, how is this possible? I don't understand. I could count on one hand how many sexual partners I had by that time. And it didn't even take up the whole hand. So and you get the stigmas. You hear what people say about people who catch HIV. They're promiscuous, they're drug addicts, they're gay or lesbian and things like that. So I'm like, that's not who I am. So how can I have this disease? And it scared me because at the time, my husband and I were not married and he was in jail. And I'm like, okay, now I have to tell this man that I have this disease, because when I met him, he had just came home. And he came home with a negative result on his HIV test, which they took when he left, right before he left. So I'm like, okay, so where did this come from? So I was very afraid that he was going to leave me, and mainly because of the fact that I was pregnant. So I was afraid that he was going to leave me. And I went to go see him that day, cried all the way up there on the bus. Everybody's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Because, you see a pregnant woman crying on the bus, you tend to get a little worried. So, yeah, he didn't leave. We did get married after that. But it was a shock to my system. It switched a whole lot of things in my thought process. And I'm like, okay, there has to be a reason for this happening to me. And as the years went on, I realized the reason. I'm supposed to do Sister Love 2020 and help other women get through this. I'm supposed to do I'm Still Surviving to help women understand that they're not alone. So I do, it was a scary thing for me, but because of the fact that I pushed through, I had such an awesome support system throughout the entire thing. I'm still surviving.
And you have made the most amazing lemonades with those lemons that life gave you.
Thank you.
You know, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, my sister. Jennifer, I wanted to ask you, as one of the documentarians for this project, what did you notice about the mental process that people went through while telling their stories?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wanted to just pick up on one thing first, and then I'll come back into that. There were a lot of women, so we've interviewed almost 40 women, and a pretty significant number of them have said HIV saved my life. And I didn't understand what that meant at first. And I've come to understand that for a lot of them, for women who are in recovery, it was a way for them to get into and stay in recovery. So that was one thing. It was also a way for them to get access to things that, as mostly Black women, but not entirely, they didn't have access to. Like the government didn't really care what happened to them, and this then became a way for that to happen. But also because of what Cheri just talked about, that they finally found people who they were able to talk to. And I think that that's part of it, is that this project, in part because women interview one another, and Cheri told the story about her interview. It was a very long afternoon. We were sitting there together in the library at SUNY Downstate, and it's just like it's an intense process to do that, you know, to interview somebody and then to be interviewed and to just sit in that space. And then we come back together again, and we have these great pictures of the women like putting things up on walls and making comparisons to one another. And so it really is a way to find other people who have stories that are connected to yours. So one of the best things, I don't know, Cheri, if you remember this, but we were in Brooklyn, and we had gotten pictures of different things around Brooklyn from the Brooklyn Historical Society, and we put them up on the wall in like these big sheets. And the women took their quotes and their pictures, and they went and put their quotes and their pictures next to the pictures, like of the Wonder Wheel or of the Brooklyn Bridge or Jehovah's, which you can see from the bridge, which will mean something to people who lived in Brooklyn before now. And this was like an amazing thing, because they would meet each other at the picture, and they would be like, oh, this is how I'm attached to that picture, and this is how I'm attached to that picture. So I think it's that that network. And Sister Love is an amazing project that was born in this same moment as the Wise. It's a really amazing institution that supports women living with HIV out of Atlanta. And I find them and the people who run it like my kin. I look to them as guidance for how to do this work. So I'm absolutely delighted that it's working for you too, Cheri, to have them both in your life.
Well, I am just so grateful that I get to know you both. You know, this is such an amazing conversation. I'm really happy we're doing this. I want to thank you both so much for coming together and for having this beautiful conversation. Now I want to share a final clip with you, Cheri, speaking about a decision you made to let a man into your bed. Because I know what that's like, though. I have made that decision a couple of times, and I love your experience, and I love how you narrate it. So can we please share that clip from Cheri?
That's just who I am. He's a guest in my home. And so he says to me, I know you're not going to make me sleep in this bed by myself. That was the plan. He's like, why would you do that? Why not? He's like, come on, it's okay. Don't worry about nothing. Okay, I'm not worried about anything. You know, I'm bigger than you. This is what I'm saying in my head. I'm bigger than you. Jesus Christ. You know, but I was very attracted to him. And he also caught me at a point where I was 23 years old, living by myself with no significant other. All of my friends, and I had no children. All of my friends, even though they were living with their parents, their mothers, had children, had boyfriends. So I'm sitting up here going, there really is something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me. And he caught me at that point. And he showed up just at that point. And he stayed that night, and he didn't leave till 10 years later. That's how I tell the story.
Wow. Wow. Ah, Cheri, who was that person interviewing you? Because I love hearing her. In the back. Who interviewed you?
That was Jennifer, right? Jeanette. Yeah, Jeanette.
Hey, who's but that I think that's Jeanette.
I don't know who is me, but I love the me.
That's the Jeanette.
So, Cheri, you know what? I love women, and when I am around women is when I mostly feel the safest always. And sometimes women, cis or trans and straight or gay, sometimes we are a little bit catty too. So tell me a little bit, how was the process? Was it a sense of sisterhood while you were doing these? Was there any shade? Was it just love?
With me and Jeanette, it was just love. Yeah, it was nothing but love. Before we got to the interview process, we were together in a lot of meetings, trying to set everything up together. And her and I got to talking during the meetings, and we exchanged phone numbers, and we were conversing with each other outside of the meetings for the project. So yeah, it was nothing but love with me and Jeanette. When I first met Jeanette, I felt nothing but love. She reminded me of an aunt that I had, God rest her soul, you know, that she was who was like a second mom to me. And when I met Jeanette, all I saw was my aunt, and it just filled me with so much love for Jeanette that it just carried over. So yeah, it was nothing but love with Jeanette. There was no shade. You know, the only time she got angry with me when she found out I wasn't taking my meds. That's about the only time she got angry with me. But other than that, it was pure love. And I felt love, nothing but love exuding from her. It just came out of her pores and just wrapped me up in it felt like a warm blanket wrapping itself around me. You know, the love that she showed me throughout this whole process.
So amazing. So amazing. I'm
just gonna I'm just gonna hold 1 second. I have to plug my computer in.
Yes, we don't want to lose you.
No, I don't want to lose you.
Oh my God, you have a blue wall.
Yeah.
My partner is fighting me. I say no, but now I'm looking at your blue wall, and I may like it. Yeah. I don't know if I'm ready for a blue wall. I wanted to, before we go, ask you, very leader of, as a storyteller, I feel like every time I share one of my stories, I experience a sense of healing, an internal sense of healing. And I wanted to see how this process felt for you both in the different positions that you were through this process.
Well, for me, it was a healing. It was very healing for me because before this project started, I did feel alone at times. I had my support system, but it's like they don't understand what I'm dealing with. They don't understand how it feels to have this disease. So they can't relate. They could be there for me. They can, help me push through any depression that I have, but they don't understand. They can sympathize, but they can't empathize because they're not experiencing it. And when I became a part of this project, to find women who could empathize and sympathize and understand and be like, that's all right, girl. I know what you're feeling. I know how you feel it. And you know that they know what you're feeling. It is definitely very healing. And then to be able to pour all of this information out that you've had locked up inside of you, all of the feelings and the emotions and the anger and the frustration you've had with dealing with this disease, and have people go, yeah, me too. And go, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I felt that too. It's like a moment. I can breathe. I can exhale when it comes to this disease now, because I know that there's someone that I can go to and go, okay, I'm feeling this today. I don't know if you felt this, but I'm feeling this today. If you did, please tell me how you dealt with it. And you have someone who can go, yeah, I felt that, and I did this, and I did that. And it helps you with dealing with it. Whenever you have to deal with something that can be so, how do you say it, catastrophic in your life, and to have someone have to deal with the same catastrophe that you're dealing with, it helps you to go through it a whole lot easier. And yeah, so I'm grateful to be a part of this project, because it helped me in so many ways, and I want to give back to the community that has given so much to me, and share this story so that other women can go, I know somebody understands me.
Oh God, that's
Couldn't put it more beautifully myself.
It's so beautiful what you just said, Cheri. It's so beautiful. It kind of, not to compare, because we're not here to compare, but I got a little bit transported when I met the first trans person that I met in my life, and I was like, oh, I'm not the only one. Somebody else is going through the same things that I'm going through. So I kind of like get a sense of how that worked for you. And for you, Jennifer, how was the experience of being an interviewer?
I mean, what Cheri said is so beautiful. It's hard to follow. But I guess the one thing that I would say is that for me, the most amazing part of this project has been getting to say figuring out that what we're doing is a living women's history of HIV. And because those words so rarely go together, what it means to say that. And I will say that 2 of the women in North Carolina have passed since we interviewed them. And I thought, I don't know whether it was sort of magical thinking. I was like, well, they're in a living women's history of HIV, so they can't ever die. And so it's just, there's something incredible about getting to stay in this conversation and see how it's mattered. I see the women in Chicago, because that's where I live, much more often than I'm able to see the women in Brooklyn or in North Carolina, which is sad for me. But to just hear Cheri talk about it that way is really powerful for me. And I just want to say we're getting ready, hopefully in November, to launch the digital exhibition that will share all of the stories from Brooklyn, Chicago, and North Carolina together. And you'll be able to read all of them and hear all of the audio clips. So you can look for Cheri in there if you want to. And we'll have, when we've created the final books for each location, people will be able to order them and print them on demand so that they can have them. But those will also be things that we give to the women who have taken part in the project.
Amazing. Another reason to be hopeful about November. though, right?
From your lips to God's ears.
We get it. We get out of these nightmares. Trust me. We will get it. We have to. We have to. I'm out of time, and it was not difficult to get out of time with you both, because just talking with you both is so entertaining and such an amazing experience. So I want to thank you again, Jennifer and Cheri, for teaching us all about the work you have done together. And it was such an inspiration for me. And, as I said before, as a storyteller, I cherish stories. I cherish the human experience and how we are able to translate it in our own words. I'm just really, really, really touched by all of this work that you all been doing. And I hope this will inspire others to make the same work in their own communities as well. So thank you for joining us for A Time to Listen with the New York City AIDS Memorial. So thank you, Cheri, and thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Go Capricorn.
Yes. AIDS history is our history.
It is.
And our future.
Mm-hmm.
So email us at info@nycaidsmemorial.org, or send us a message via Instagram or Facebook at NYC AIDS Memorial to let us know of any archival audio or video clips of AIDS history that you think we should or could share. Until then, take care of yourselves, take it easy, be nice to yourself, and be well.